I was always the one who reached out first, made plans, adjusted my schedule, canceled my commitments, and rearranged my life to make room for her. For 3 years, I thought that meant I loved her more and my effort would eventually be matched. But when she told me her ex-boyfriend would be spending Christmas with her family and that I couldn't come because it would be awkward, that was when everything changed, and she wasn't ready for the decision I made next. My name is Thomas, and this is my story. I met Vanessa at a friend's birthday party. My friend, who was celebrating, rented out the back room of a bar downtown. I almost did not go that night. I had been working long hours on a project at the engineering firm where I was employed, and all I wanted to do was go home and sleep. But the celebrant had been my closest friend for many years, and missing his 30th birthday would have been unforgivable. So I put on a decent shirt, dragged myself to the bar, and walked into a room full of people I mostly did not know. During the game, I was paired with Vanessa, which helped us warm up to each other. After the games, we moved away from the group and found a quiet corner where we could hear each other without shouting over the music, then talked for 2 hours that night. The conversation flowed as if we had known each other for years rather than hours. When the party started winding down, I asked for her number. She gave it to me without hesitation. I texted her the next day to tell her I had enjoyed meeting her. She texted back within minutes, and we made plans for dinner that weekend. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant near her apartment, and there were a couple more after that. I remember thinking that I had stumbled onto something rare and valuable. I asked her out after some weeks of being close, and she accepted. The first year of our relationship was everything I had hoped for. We spent weekends together exploring different neighborhoods of the city, finding new restaurants and coffee shops, wandering through bookstores and parks. We stayed in on rainy days and watched movies on her couch with takeout containers scattered around us. We met each other's friends and merged our social circles. We talked about the future in hopeful terms. I believed every word of those conversations because she seemed to want them too. She was everything I wanted. So I let myself fall into the relationship and trusted that she was falling for me, too. About 2 years into the relationship, Vanessa decided it was time for me to meet her parents. She casually told me one evening at her apartment that her family was having a small gathering for her father's birthday, and she thought it would be nice if I came along. I agreed immediately. Meeting the parents felt like a significant step, a sign that she was serious about our future together. I spent the days leading up to the visit choosing my outfit, buying a nice bottle of wine to bring, and rehearsing the things I would say to make a good impression. Her parents lived in a lovely house in the suburbs. The drive took about an hour, and Vanessa spent most of it telling me about her family. I was nervous when we pulled into the driveway, but the visit went better than I expected. Her father met us at the door with a firm handshake and a reserved smile. He asked about my job, nodding along as I explained what I did at the company I work for, and seemed genuinely interested in the technical details. Her mother hugged me like we were already family. She said Vanessa had told her so much about me, and that she was so happy to meet the man her daughter was always talking about. Dinner was pleasant. The conversation was easy, flowing between topics, without awkward silences. Her parents asked about my background, my family, and my plans for the future. I answered honestly and asked my own questions. By the end of the evening, I felt like I had passed some kind of test. Her parents seemed to like me, and more importantly, Vanessa told me the visit had gone even better than she had hoped. After that visit, things were pretty okay between us. Months later, I would gradually notice that I was always more invested than she was. I was always the one making plans and initiating dates. I was always the one who reached out first, who sent the good morning texts, who called just to hear her voice. I was always the one adjusting my schedule to make time for her, rearranging meetings and canceling plans with friends when she wanted to see me. She fit me in when it was convenient. I made her a priority. I didn't know how to confront this situation at first, so I made excuses for her. I didn't think her behavior was a big deal since she met my other criteria. So I kept initiating things, even though she sometimes reaffirmed to me that she loves me. By the 3rd year of our relationship, I had made up my mind. I wanted to marry Vanessa. That might seem strange given everything I have told you about the imbalance in our relationship, but love does not work the way logic does. I believed that commitment would fix this situation. Once we were officially engaged, once we had declared our intentions to the world, she would invest more in what we were building. Marriage brings couples closer, and I didn't think our situation would be different. I told myself a lot of things that, looking back, seem painfully naive. I started setting aside money for a ring. I was taking on side projects that brought in additional income. I cut back on things I did not really need, skipping the expensive coffees and the impulse purchases that usually ate into my budget. Every month, I transferred a portion of my paycheck into a separate savings account that Vanessa did not know about. I watched the balance grow slowly, feeling proud of my discipline and excited about the future I was working toward. After 5 months, I had saved enough. I went to a jewelry store on a Saturday. I spent 2 hours looking at rings, asking questions, and comparing options. I finally settled on a simple diamond on a gold band, elegant without being flashy. It was beautiful in an understated way, and it matched Vanessa's personality perfectly. I paid for it, walked out of the store with a small velvet box in my pocket, and felt like my life was about to begin. I decided to propose at Christmas. This decision came from something Vanessa had said a few weeks earlier. We were talking about the upcoming holidays, and she mentioned casually that this year might be different. She might bring me to her parents' house for Christmas. She said it offhandedly, almost like it was not a big deal, but my heart leaped when I heard the words. This was it. After 2 years of being excluded from their Christmas tradition, I was finally being invited in. It felt like a sign. She was ready to include me in her family in a deeper way. She was ready to take the next step. I imagined the proposal in vivid detail. We would drive to her parents' house on Christmas Eve. I would find a quiet moment to pull her father aside and ask for his blessing, man to man, the traditional way. He would shake my hand and welcome me to the family. Then, on Christmas morning or maybe Christmas evening, I would get down on one knee in front of her parents and ask Vanessa to marry me. As we got closer to Christmas, I bought thoughtful gifts for her parents to bring along. I wrapped both gifts carefully, with nice paper and proper ribbons, wanting everything to be perfect. I also wrapped a small gift for Vanessa to open in front of her parents, something innocent that would not give away my real plan. The ring would come later, at the right moment. I rehearsed what I would say when I asked her father for his blessing. I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror, trying to find the right words, the right tone. I wanted to sound confident but not arrogant, sincere but not desperate. I wanted him to know that I loved his daughter and would take care of her for the rest of my life. I also rehearsed the proposal itself. I tried different versions, different phrasings, different approaches. I wanted the words to sound natural when the moment came, not rehearsed or stiff. I tried to speak from the heart while still getting across the necessary points. I practiced until the speech felt like part of me. A week before Christmas, I had everything ready. I had requested time off from work and blocked out the days around Christmas to avoid distractions. I had made dinner reservations at a nice restaurant for the night we returned from her parents' house, planning to celebrate our engagement with a fancy meal. I had even started looking at apartments that would be big enough for 2 people, imagining where we might live once we started our life together as an engaged couple. I was happy in a way I had not been happy in a long time. I felt like my life was finally coming together, like all the pieces I had been collecting for years were about to form a complete picture. I was about to propose to the woman I loved. I was about to start a new chapter. While I waited to hear from Vanessa about which day we were going over to her parents, she became distant with her replies and flaky with her words. Her text messages, which had always been warm and conversational, became short and functional. Instead of the playful banter we usually exchanged, I received one-word responses. When I sent her something funny or asked about her day, she replied with a thumbs-up emoji instead of actual words. It felt like talking to a stranger who was being polite but did not really want to engage. When I called her, she often did not answer. My calls went to voicemail, and she would text me an hour or 2 later, saying she had been busy and could not talk. When she did answer, our conversations were brief and distracted. I could hear her typing on her computer or moving around her apartment while we spoke. She gave me half her attention at best, and even that felt forced. I tried to see her twice that week. The first time, I suggested we get dinner. She said she was too busy with work to go out. There was a big project due before the holidays, and she needed to stay late every night to finish it. I said I understood and asked if she wanted me to bring her food to the office instead. She said no, she would just grab something from the vending machine. The second time was 3 days before Christmas. I suggested a quiet night in, just the two of us, watching a movie at her place. She said she was exhausted and needed to sleep. She had been running on empty all week and could not handle company, even mine. I tried to understand. Work piles up in December as everyone tries to finish projects before the year ends. She was overwhelmed and needed space to get through the crunch. I should be supportive rather than demanding. I should give her room to breathe instead of pressuring her to spend time with me. But something felt wrong underneath the reasonable explanations. There was a quality to her distance that was different from everyday stress or tiredness. She was not just busy. She was pulling away. Her voice on the phone had a flatness I had never heard before, a lack of warmth that made me feel as if I were talking to someone who did not particularly want to speak to me. I pushed the feeling down. I did not want to start a fight right before Christmas, right before I was supposed to propose. If I confronted her about being distant and it turned into an argument, it could ruin everything I had planned. So I stayed quiet. I gave her space. I waited for the distance to pass. On the evening of December 23rd, my phone rang while I was making dinner in my apartment. I saw Vanessa's name on the screen and answered with a smile, expecting her to confirm our plans for the next day's trip to her parents' house. Maybe she was calling to tell me what time we should leave or reconnect after the distant week we had just gone through. Instead, she got straight to the point. Her voice was flat and matter-of-fact, without any of the warmth I was used to hearing. She told me that the Christmas visit would not work out. Before I could ask why, she continued. Her ex-boyfriend, whom she broke up with before I came into the picture, was coming to spend Christmas with her family, and it would be awkward to have both of us there. She said the ex was coming back after spending 3 years in Europe, and she hoped I understood. I felt my heart get heavy in my chest. She is basically telling me that her ex-boyfriend was more paramount than I was. Her statement meant that 3 years in a relationship meant less than the comfort of a man who left her for another country, and that she had supposedly moved on from. I did not react. I just said okay. That single word was all I could manage to push past the tightness in my throat. There was a pause on the line. Then she said she knew I would understand, adding that I was so reasonable and easygoing, and that was one of the things she loved about me. She said we would do something together after the holidays to make up for it. Then she said she had to go, and hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after the call ended. I thought about the 3 years I had spent with this woman. I thought about all the times I had adjusted my life for her, all the times I had put her needs before my own, all the times I had convinced myself that the imbalance in our relationship was temporary and would correct itself eventually. I thought about how foolish I had been to believe she was ready to commit to me when she could not even prioritize me over an ex-boyfriend for a single holiday. By the end of that day, I made my decision. I was done. This wasn't the situation where one says things in anger and later regrets them. I had finally seen the truth, and there was no way to unsee it. Christmas came and went without me sending Vanessa a single message. I did not text her Merry Christmas. I did not call to ask how her holiday was going. I did not check her social media to see photos of her family gathering. I simply went silent. This was unusual, and I knew she would notice eventually. In our 3 years together, I had always been the one to maintain communication between us. That had always been my role, and Vanessa had grown so accustomed to it that she probably could not imagine me stopping. She probably expected me to be upset for a few days and then get over it. She expected me to reach out first, like I always did, and resume the normal pattern of our relationship. She expected me to swallow my hurt and pretend everything was okay, because that is what I had always done before. But this time was different. I did not reach out. Days passed without a message from me. There was a whole week of complete silence. I spent the rest of the holiday with friends, but I felt empty. During that week of silence, I dismantled the future I had been building with her, piece by piece. I took the ring back to the jewelry store and explained that I would not be needing it after all. The sales associate looked sympathetic, but did not ask questions. She processed the return and handed me a refund receipt. I walked out of the store knowing the money would be back in my account later. I donated the gifts I had bought for her parents. There was a charity drive collecting items for families in need, and I dropped off the expensive whiskey and the cashmere scarf without a second thought. Someone else would enjoy them. Someone else's family would benefit from my foolishness. I deleted the dinner reservation I had made for our supposed engagement celebration. I canceled the extra days off I had requested from work. I stopped looking at apartments for 2 people. I erased every trace of the future I had imagined so vividly until there was nothing left but the present moment and the silence between us. I also started asking questions. Something about the Christmas revelation had unlocked a suspicion I had been pushing down for months. If her ex was that important to spend Christmas with her family, what else did I not know? What other secrets had Vanessa been keeping from me? I reached out to a mutual friend, someone who knew Vanessa's family and had been around during her relationship with her ex. I asked casual questions at first, not wanting to seem desperate or paranoid. But the more I learned, the more the picture came into focus. Vanessa and her ex had dated for 4 years before I came along. They had started dating in college and stayed together through their early 20s. When they broke up, it was not as mutual as Vanessa had claimed. The ex, despite not being in the country, had wanted to keep going, and that Vanessa had been the one to end things. But even after the breakup, he had stayed close to her family. Her parents adored him. They asked about him constantly. And here was the part that changed the way I saw things. There were rumors that Vanessa and her ex had never really ended things, that they had continued being in touch with each other, off and on, even while Vanessa was dating me. I could not confirm whether she had cheated on me physically. I had no proof, no evidence, no confession. But emotionally, the picture was clear. She had never really left that relationship. She had kept me around as a backup, a stable, reliable option who would be there when her ex was unavailable. I was the safe choice. He was the one she actually wanted. 2 weeks after Christmas, my phone buzzed with a text message. I was sitting at my desk at work. When I looked at the screen, I saw Vanessa's name. I opened the message and read the words she had sent. "So are you done sulking because you didn't get your way?" I stared at that message for a while, being speechless. After 2 weeks of silence and choosing her ex-boyfriend over me for Christmas, this was what she had to say. She was not apologizing. She was not acknowledging that she had done something hurtful. She was not asking if I was okay or expressing any concern about the state of our relationship. She was attacking me. She was framing my silence as childish sulking, as though I was throwing a tantrum because I did not get what I wanted. She was turning the situation around so that I was the problem, not her. I did not respond. I put my phone back in my drawer and went back to work. I did everything but thought about the message waiting on my phone. 3 days passed. She did not reach out again during that time. I imagined she expected me to come crawling back, to send an apologetic message acknowledging that I had overreacted, to resume my role as the one who always made an effort to keep us connected. When I did not, she sent another message. This one was longer and more calculated. She said she could not believe I was being so petty about something so small. She said her ex was just a family friend at this point, that he and she were ancient history, and that I was blowing the whole thing entirely out of proportion. She said that if I really loved her, I would not be punishing her with silence over something that was clearly just a misunderstanding. She asked if I was really going to throw away 3 years of our relationship because of one Christmas. The manipulation was blatant now that I could see it clearly. She was trying to minimize what she had done, calling it something small when it was not. She was trying to make me feel guilty for having feelings about it, suggesting that real love meant accepting whatever she did without complaint. She was trying to reframe the entire situation so that I was the unreasonable one, the petty one, the one who was throwing things away over nothing. I recognized the tactic because I had fallen for it so many times before. Whenever I had expressed hurt or disappointment in the past, she had found a way to turn it around on me. She had made me feel like my feelings were the problem rather than her actions. She had trained me to apologize for being upset rather than expecting an apology from her. But not this time. This time, I saw it for what it was, and I did not fall for it. I read her message one more time. Then I blocked her number. I blocked her on every social media platform. I blocked her email address. I closed every door she might use to reach me, every avenue of communication, every possibility of further manipulation. I did it calmly, without anger or regret. I was simply protecting myself from someone who had proven she did not deserve access to my life. A few weeks after I blocked Vanessa, I learned something that confirmed I had made the right decision. Vanessa had been planning to ask me for money. Apparently, her financial situation had become complicated in the weeks after Christmas. Some unexpected expenses had come up. She was short on cash and struggling to make ends meet. Her ex, for all his appeal, was not in a position to help. He had a freelance job with inconsistent income. Sometimes he made good money, and sometimes he made almost nothing. For 3 years, I had been her safety net, always there to catch her when she fell. Vanessa had been planning to smooth things over with me enough to ask for a loan. That was the real purpose behind her messages. Not reconciliation, not an apology, not a genuine desire to fix what was broken between us. She just needed money, and I had always been willing to provide it. The guilt trips were designed to soften me up, by making me feel bad about my silence, and like I was being petty and unreasonable. She hoped to get me talking again. Once we were communicating, she could work her way up to the ask. She could explain her financial troubles and appeal to my caring nature. She could frame the loan as a way to prove that I still loved her, a test of my commitment that I would naturally want to pass. But I had blocked her before she could make the ask. I had closed the door before she could walk through it with her hand outstretched. I had protected myself without even knowing what I was protecting myself from. When her close friend told me this, I felt a wave of relief. I was relieved that I had trusted my instincts. I was relieved that I had not given in to the guilt, had not sent an apologetic message, and had reopened communication. I was relieved that I had walked away before she could use me one more time. I was also sad, because the confirmation meant that everything I had feared was true. She had never loved me the way I loved her. She had kept me around for what I could provide, not for who I was. Our entire relationship had been transactional in a way I had refused to see until it was over. But underneath the sadness, the relief remained. I had escaped. I had gotten out before she could drain me further. And I would never let anyone use me like that again. Looking back now, with the clarity that comes from distance and healing, I can see the relationship for what it actually was. I was never her priority. I was her safety net. I was the reliable backup who would always be there, always reach out first, always make the effort to keep things going. She kept me around because I was stable and because I made her life easier. I paid for things. I showed up when she needed me. I provided emotional support, practical help, and everything else she needed to navigate her life comfortably. But she never loved me the way I loved her. I was useful. That is not the same as being valued. The signs were there all along, and I chose to ignore them. I spent 3 years investing in someone who saw me as an option rather than a choice. I was willing to give a ring to a woman who was still emotionally attached to another man. I told myself so many lies during those 3 years. I told myself these lies because the truth was too painful to face, and admitting it would have meant acknowledging that I was wasting my time on someone who did not appreciate me. The Christmas phone call was the best thing that ever happened to me. That sounds strange to say because it was also one of the most painful moments of my life. Standing in my kitchen, hearing her tell me that her ex-boyfriend mattered more than I did, feeling my heart get heavy and my plans fall apart. But that pain was necessary. It was the shock that finally broke through my denial. She showed me the truth. She ripped away the illusions and forced me to see what I was actually dealing with. And once I saw it, I could not unsee it. I could not go back to pretending that everything was fine. I could not keep making excuses for someone who had just proven, beyond any doubt, that I was not important to her. I am grateful that I did not propose. I think about it sometimes. What would have happened if she had not told me about her ex? I would have gone to her parents' house with a ring in my pocket and hope in my heart. I might have proposed. She might have said yes. We might have gotten engaged and then married. And I would have spent the rest of my life in a relationship where I gave everything and received crumbs in return. I would have been miserable without understanding why. I would have kept making excuses, kept adjusting my expectations downward, kept convincing myself that this was just how relationships worked. Instead, I got the truth. It hurt, but it set me free. While I am hurt with how things turned out, I do not hate Vanessa, and I do not wish bad things for her. I hope she finds whatever she is looking for, whether that is her ex or someone else entirely. But I also hope she learns to treat people better than she treated me. I hope she learns that you cannot build a real relationship on a foundation of taking without giving. I hope she grows. As for me, I have learned to recognize when someone is using me rather than valuing me. I have learned to pay attention to actions rather than words, to notice when someone's behavior does not match their promises. I have learned that my time, energy, and love are valuable, and that I should not give them to people who do not appreciate what they are receiving. I have also learned that walking away is not failure. For 3 years, I stayed in a relationship that was not working because I was afraid that leaving meant I had failed. I was afraid of being alone. I was afraid of admitting that I had made a mistake in choosing her. I was afraid of starting over. But walking away was not failure. Walking away was the bravest thing I have ever done. It was the moment I finally chose myself, finally decided that I deserved better, and finally stopped accepting less than I was worth. That is not failure. That is victory. If you are reading this and any of it sounds familiar, if you are in a relationship where you give everything and receive almost nothing, I want you to know something. It is okay to leave. It is okay to demand more. It is okay to recognize that you deserve someone who treats you like a priority rather than an option. Love is not supposed to be one-sided. Love is not supposed to leave you feeling empty and used. If that is what you are experiencing, it is not love. It is exploitation dressed up in nicer clothing. I hope you do not need a moment as painful as the one I experienced in finding your own freedom. But if you do, I hope you have the courage to walk away when it comes. I hope you choose yourself the way I finally learned to choose myself. That is my story. Thank you for watching.